It's that timeless pursuit of when art merges with the artist, where we put ourselves out there, find that moment of motivation, and ride the momentum, and then love the very art we create. These are all deeply linked to the soul of who we are. Some say you might be able to measure that, but perhaps it is a blind pursuit. Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to another 21 Grams, and I am your host, Joe Compton, and familiar face with me as always. And I was actually just commenting, I was telling Sarah off the air that we actually did this exact show 364 days ago, so like literally almost an entire year ago, which is kind of funny.
Wild.
It was on that day. Yeah.
Well, full coincidence. I think I actually tried to book this in December, and you told me like you got to go to next year. So it just happens that it's a full year.
Yeah, it's just funny. As always, I always love to start the time that we have here with the guests telling us a little bit about themselves. I know you've been on plenty of Going Now shows and people know you, but for those who might not know or tuning in for the first time, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Sarah. I write under SG Tasz, and I write primarily supernatural, suspense, urban fantasy, a little bit of paranormal comedy, and starting to get more into like romantic B-lines. I'll probably never actually do like full romance, but I like to have a little bit of romance in there now as I get older. Other significant details about me is I live in Las Vegas very proudly. So my books tend to feature Vegas. So far, it's been significantly featured, but I think it'll always be featured in some way just because I find it a fun and fascinating place that shouldn't, somehow it exists, even though it's wild that it does.
I'm curious, as you get older, as as you become an older parent too, and your kids start to explore this town that you know and live their lives in Vegas, right? It evolves, right? Vegas is one of those evolving towns. So is your writing evolving with the town, or are you kind of like pining for the nostalgia of what you first knew about Las Vegas in most of what you write?
I think it's interesting because like I do have, when I first moved here, I'm entering my 6th year now. I moved here in 2019 in any case. So I'm closing out my 6th year, whatever. Right around now, actually. I moved, might even be today. I'm not sure. It was the beginning of March in any case. And I do kind of, when I first moved, it was still very much like, ooh, it's new. And, I can go to the Strip whenever I want. And it's new, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
And, the longer I lived here, the less and less I would go, the more I, gravitated towards, my writing groups, which are off the Strip, and activities sort of like that are just more my speed instead of just Vegas in general. But I still, I am not one of those people that's like, the Strip is so overrated, I'll never go. I'm not one of those locals that is, I never go to the Strip. I like the Strip. It's, there's a lot of fun stuff. And also, like, the Strip is such a pain in the ass. Like, it's so much traffic, it's so much tourism. Like, if you're not utilizing it, why are you even here?
It's also the only place in America I can think of where smoking is around a lot more than and it is not.
Yeah, there's still, even to this day, there's still only one casino that's fully smoke free. The rest are, you can still smoke pretty much anywhere on the floor. At the casino floor, you can't smoke in restaurants.
Yeah, and you in some of the rooms too, they have like smoking rooms and stuff like that too. But yeah,
is gross to me. Like, I don't mind smoking on the casino floor. Like, it's sort of atmospheric. I've never minded the smell, but like rooms are nasty smoking.
Well, at the airport too, they have like the glass rooms where you can smoke, and then it's just like walking by a room of fog, right? It's so weird.
Yeah, I first encountered that not in Vegas, but when I was studying in London, like way back 20 years ago. You could still smoke. I don't know if it's still the case now, but this was well after you couldn't smoke in most airports here. But yeah, they had like little corrals, sort of like where you might take a dog to like go pee, like little blocked off areas, and you just sit in there, and it stinks so bad. Like, yeah.
Are you surprised? I mean, I know you're a pretty active political person. Are you surprised by the politics of Nevada?
Not really. I mean,
because it is like
whether or not I'm
bouillabaisse of people, right? I mean, people go there. People who, I mean, you have retirees that go there a lot, but there's a lot of different cultures and different people who end up there.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think my politics are any secret. If you follow me, all my posts on even my page on Facebook are public, so you know. You know, I was maybe a little bit surprised. How purple it is. But like when I really think about it, it makes sense because Nevada, if you look at the state, it's a big state. I think it only has something like 9 counties in it, and only 2 really big major cities. So that's a lot of, you know, and those cities are pretty mixed. Like you've got you got a lot of Midwesterners coming, which can also be sort of mixed depending on where they're from and who they are. And then you've got Californians coming in, and then you've got people who are mad that the Californians are coming in, because that's always like a tension thing here. Which
tension thing everywhere.
yeah. Here it's particularly like, oh, you know, the California, like people will come in from LA for the weekend, they'll jam up the roads, they'll, you know, screw around, and then they'll leave, and, you know, possibly a giant mess behind, and then it's, you know, you roll your eyes and you move on. But also, you know, Las Vegas makes a lot of money from Californians, so there's tension specifically.
I mean, yeah, because you could drive there. That's the thing about it for Californians, right? It's 6 hours, and no matter where you're from in California, it's about 6 or 7 hours to drive to Vegas. So.
Exactly, yeah. And LA is 5. So
yeah. But I asked that question not to expose your politics or anything, but it's fascinating to me because knowing where you grew up, where you are, and then what you write, there is, if you followed your only lineage of where you grew up, you know, where you live, what you write would be kind of a departure from all of that. So it's kind of interesting. How do you just not worry about who you are when you write, or is that something you're thinking about when you're writing, because you are, you know, you do represent a lot of what you grew up with and who you become, right, in a lot of what you write. So it's kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're talking about like, I grew up in Minnesota, educated in Wisconsin, which I think people look at the Midwest and they think of sort of a, you know,
I would say it's probably purple, most of what you've been through experiencing, right?
Yeah. And I think that's pretty well indicative of, my life. My mom, most of my politics and most of my outlooks come from my mom. She was involved in our hometown politics, very progressive, very much, you know, we lived in a suburb of Minneapolis. So it was, and this was back in like the 80s and 90s, back when it was a little bit, you know, less cosmopolitan than it is now, the area around Minneapolis, probably Minneapolis too. And she our town was full of, you know, pawn shops and bars, and she had me and my sister, and she was looking at it and she was like, we can do better than this. And so she joined city council. And people didn't, she joined a boys club, basically.
Right.
I'm getting this secondhand because I was very young. This is the story she's told me. And she went in there, and she even now admits that she was kind of a dick about it, but she was like, I'm gonna make this a family city. I'm going to focus on like what our community needs to make this like a thriving town. And to look at Hopkins now, like, which is where I grew up, you wouldn't recognize it. Like, there's a cute little main street. There's a performing arts center. They've got like a greenway, like bike path. They've got a green line, like light rail coming through. Like, and my mom, she had a lot of help, and she, lots of people came after her, but she helped build that. So and I've never felt like I need to hide who I am, no matter what I'm doing. My mom has read my books. My mom has come to see every play I've written. Like, when I was young, I definitely, part of what I was trying to write was something that would freak my parents out, because that's who I was. And it worked, which I'm very proud to say. So yeah, I've never really shied away from what I think and who I am. And I learned that from my parents, and I've had that support my whole life.
Now that you're a parent yourself, is it more important that your point of view be more present? Do you feel like that's important?
Now that I'm a parent?
Yeah. Do you feel like your point of view, you're happy that your point of view is out there, that your child can be encouraged by you and who you are, and say, this is my mom and this is what she's accomplished, kind of idea? I think,
like, it'll be interesting because he's 3, so he's not
right.
On, like,
right. But you're probably about the same age when your mom did what she did, right? So
yeah, I do think about that now, that I have this little pair of eyes kind of always following me around and looking at what I'm doing, and he just pays attention to everything too. So like, he knows, like, this is my home office. And so he knows when I go up to my office, he knows, mommy's going to work. And when I used to do my Monster of the Week blog post, he would always ask to see the monsters, because I would, generate photos of monsters just to use on the post. And he would always want to see them. So he knows, like, that I do stuff that is not what Daddy does, because Daddy has he's the guy that makes the money for our house. He has a tech job. But yeah, Miles definitely knows, like, I'm doing something different. I'm excited to see where that goes as he becomes older and more aware of, like, what being a writer is, and like that the books that he can hold in his hand, like, I make something like that.
Is he a reader?
Kind of, like, he likes to take his, like, board books, rip them apart, and reorganize them.
Oh, cool.
And then he'll tell himself a story. So I wouldn't call him a reader, but he's something.
Storyteller.
He's very interested in books and stories. He's a builder of some kind.
Were you an avid reader growing up, or did that come with time for you?
No, I've always been a reader. I was just saying the other day, I am, one of those people, and very lucky, I feel, that I don't remember a time when I couldn't read. Like, I remember like really blurry flashes of, like, learning my letters in kindergarten, and then the next memory I have, I'm reading. So yeah, I've always been a big reader.
I think the last time we talked, we were talking about the 3rd book hadn't come out yet, and
the 2nd book hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, it was on the cusp, right? And
yeah, about a month out.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about, you weren't sure exactly. You had a vague idea or inkling of where it was going, but now it seems more definitive for you that you're ready to move on, or that you know where this story is going to end. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so this story ends in kind of two places. Book 3 is out. Book 1 through 3 are out right now. I'm really close to the end of a first draft on book 4. That's going to be coming out in August. And that is basically the end of this leg of the journey. And it might be the end of the journey forever. We'll kind of see. I do have a future if, it seems prudent to go down that road. But as of like right now, I am ending the series in a way that feels good. And
it's something in the water in Las Vegas, because Wayne says the exact same thing about his series. And
well, I'm going to tell you right now, Wayne, I know for a fact, is doing it because he got burned out on Urban Fantasy. I am doing it because for much worse reasons, which is I would keep writing this for nine books. I have 9 books planned out. But financially, I can't sustain it with just one series that, is selling all right, but like not well enough to sustain. So like I need to, unfortunately for me, I need to let it go and move on to something else. And I'm hoping I can come back to it in the future.
Are you looking at maybe like doing like an omnibus or something like that, where you can combine everything and put them together? I mean, they're short enough. They're not short, but they're short enough, aren't they? To do
they're 90,000 words. They're like your standard, or whatever used to be standard book.
Is that something you're interested in doing though? Is like packaging them, or is that going to even further, say, hey, look, I only have one book now. I have the omnibus.
Yeah, I think I am starting to kind of look, and I have Dead Mall way in my backlist,
right?
And I'm sort of starting to look to do something like that with Dead Mall, like a full, because those are really short.
Yeah.
7 novellas, doing something collected with them. And I might do something like that with Misadventure. If I do, it'll probably be like a Kickstarter project. But I think my next thing is going to be starting a new series, a new like 3-book series, and kind of see where it goes from there.
Are you looking at expanding beyond Las Vegas? I know you've only like kind of sold in Las Vegas before. Are you looking at like expanding your reach a little bit and going outside to like maybe even doing like Phoenix Comic-Con or something, like not so far away, but far enough away from Vegas to kind of experience that too? Or obviously once the money matters, but I mean, you know what I mean? It seems to be like Vegas is small enough where you're running into the same people all the time, and that could also become an issue.
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually do pretty well at live sales. It's the online sales that I struggle with. Always have. It's an ongoing monster that we all deal with. But it's actually funny you should mention that. I am doing a couple of larger events this year. I'm doing there's an event called Enemies and Lovers in Mesa, Arizona at the beginning of May, which I'll be doing. And then up to I go back home to Minneapolis every summer. And so I'm going to hit the Kenosha Book Festival that my friend Donovan runs. And then I'm actually doing Convergence up there, the sort of Comic-Con-esque convention up there. And then one of my ARC readers put me up for a one-day event in New Orleans right before Halloween. So,
cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of see how it goes and try some things and yeah.
And that by that time you're hoping the volume will increase, I would assume, of what you have to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely have all 4 books finished by, well, not by Convergence, but by Halloween for sure. And then, yeah, we'll see.
What do you think? What changed for you with this series? Obviously you said that it's a matter of financial stability for you, but Was there a point where you figured out that this could end right here? And what was that like for you when you did figure that out?
I mean, yeah, I figured it out right around the time, right after I published book 3, because it was 3 books in the span of 12 months, not a calendar year, but 12 months put out.
Yeah.
And I was pretty tired. And when I was writing, sort of getting to the end of book 3, and I was, as an indie, you are checking, you're writing and you're checking your sales, and you're doing the marketing. So you're all very aware of where everything stands typically in finances and in the market. And I found myself, as I was finishing book 3, just getting really sad about, because I felt I was doing some of my best work that I've ever done. And which makes sense because it's the 3rd book of a fairly large amount of books, or a fairly long books compared to what I was writing before. But I kept getting sad, and it was, I realized eventually that it's because as soon as I would finish writing for the day, I'd be really proud of what I'd done. I thought I'd done some great work. Immediately, when I was out of my writing sort of mentality, the thought would come of, who cares? No one's ever going to read it because it's book 3 and no one's reading book 1. So no one's going to read book 3. And that just got very exhausting. And then I got some advice from a coach that I was working with. And, it led me to, she kind of said, you should just stop at the end of book 3. If it hasn't taken off, it's not going to. And I was like, well, I can't do that. Given where book 3 ended, I'm not going to, for my own closure, I need to write book 4. So it was sad. That was really a hard decision to have to make. I didn't like it. I didn't like that. But as soon as I did, and I was like, all right, well, I've got one more book. I'm going to put everything that makes sense that I wanted to do with these characters in the story into this book. It got a lot easier. And while I'm sad that this might be the end for these characters, I know the next series I write is going to be even stronger because of what I did with this. And it is possible, because it'll be a new book 1, people might read that and then maybe they'll find this series too.
Are you softening as you go along? You mentioned that romance was creeping into these stories now. Do you feel like the next series you write is going to be a little bit softer than the ones you've written in the past, or are you darkening? Is it getting darker for you?
I think I'm, because it's not, the next series I have is not, I'm torn. It's either I'm going to go super soft and cozy and no romance, or it's going to go really more gritty urban fantasy with romance. And I think I'm leaning that way right now. Given kind of where we are in the world, I sort of want to, I want to run away to a big, fluffy fairyland, but also I want to murder people. So gods, particularly, this is going to be a story about Medusa.
Okay.
Who's
cool.
Decided she's going to go murder. She's going to go kill all the gods, who are now billionaires. So I think that's going to be pretty fun.
Therapeutic in a sense.
I don't know what you could be talking about.
Yeah, I don't either.
But, regardless of current world stuff, I find Medusa a really fascinating character. So I always kind of wanted to do something with her anyway. So that's I think where I'm going to go next. I think there's going to be romance, but it's going to be in response to being in a very dark sort of place. It's going to be the respite from these very heavy things that are happening.
You strike me. You strike me and I've read very, very little of what you've written, so I apologize for that. That's sad to say.
We're all
Uh,
busy.
but you strike me as someone who likes misconcepted characters, like, or misconceptions in a lot of respects. Is that fair to say? I mean, the zombies. You got Misadventure, who's kind of uh, not your typical character, and then Medusa is probably one of the most misunderstood characters on the planet. So it's kind of you're kind of running that theme a little bit. Is that what you like? You like the grayer characters to society, but maybe show them a little bit of more black and white.
Yeah, I mean, I like, and this is also something that'll carry through into the next sort of urban fantasy stuff I do, is I like, and it's the reason I gravitate toward urban fantasy, is I like the idea of there's more going on than just what you see. And not like the whole conspiracy theory level stuff, specifically like monsters and magic, and there's wonder that is waiting for you if you just want to go find it. And I think that's what draws me to those characters too, is if you have a character like Medusa, or name a villain or whatever, there's a very strong opinion about them, which means that there's a lot to subvert. And that's what I like doing.
Yeah, and it's a misinformed opinion, which is easy to subvert sometimes, but it's also very difficult, because then you have people who like that because they know that about them, right? And then so you might upset the apple cart if you go too far away from that, right? So there's an interesting dichotomy, like a little bit of a tightrope to walk there.
That's true. Yeah. But as we've established in this interview, I don't really care.
You don't give a shit.
Which is probably why I'm struggling financially. But I mean, I see the way that people are doing their business, and it works for them, and it's great. Yeah. And I admire it so entirely. And part of the reason I admire it is because I know I can't do it. Because it just, every time I try, my brain is like, what? Like, I tried writing a contemporary romance set here in Vegas, just about like some girl going to a pool and meeting a hotel pool and meeting a boy and falling in love. And then my brain was like, okay, but what if there's a sea witch and she turns her into a siren, and it doesn't work. I can't do it. My brain has to go somewhere weird.
I think though, I don't know. I think that can work to your benefit too. I think you just haven't found the right name. You're still pretty new at this for all purposes.
5 years, and most of that was like, arguably I've only been doing it for 2 years, because Dead Mall was really just throwing stuff against the wall.
Do you cringe at reading some of that stuff and going back on it when you had to re-release it, or did you kind of go, you know what, there's something here?
Yeah, it was more the second one, because I'm very hard on myself. Like when I published Dead Mall the first time they went out the door in 2019 to 2022, like I could not bring myself to read them once they were on Kindle, because I was just like, I hate it. I'm going to find stuff I hate. And just going in knowing that like, I'm going to hate this.
Right.
And then, after a number of years and another series, I look at it now and I'm like, I really shouldn't have been so hard on myself. This is, it's not great literature, but it's good. It's entertaining. The dialogue works. Like there's good stuff about it.
How does gaming shape what you do? Is there a muscle that you use in, because you're a big gamer, you've been on our shift on Hit the Dice quite a bit. You're a regular there, and I know you play outside of that in some circles, and I'm just curious how much that helps you creatively? Do you find that that is a muscle that you're using that helps exercise what you're doing creatively right now?
For sure. I think that every author could benefit from playing a round of Dungeons and Dragons or any kind of role playing game, because it puts you so fully in one perspective and one character, and it really allows you to like build
Mm.
that little creature. And for me, because I always start with the characters, or at least like the main one or two characters, and then build everything out from there, you can generate a whole story based on just that. And then when you get everyone together, and it's just so fun. Like, it really does help. It's really informed my process, and yeah.
You know what's funny is I find that, and I was talking to a friend of mine about this when I was in LA. I was talking to them, and I was telling them, yeah, we're doing what we're doing here, and I said, you should try it if you gamed before, and they're telling, and they're an actor, and they were saying, well, gaming for actors stinks because we have people who write stuff for us, and we take that and we pull, and so I am finding that more writers like gaming than actors, which I would have thought would have been the complete opposite of it. But writers like to get into that acting mode too, because they're building it as they're going, but they're building it as a written word almost, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that it does surprise me that actors. I guess it probably takes a more specific kind of actor. I'm guessing that like a comedian, or definitely an
improv person. Yeah, somebody who's probably used to writing on the fly for themselves.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're gonna like, I trying to think of like the most unlikely actor that I could think of that like in a game, but I can't. Anthony Hopkins, but he'd probably be great.
I've seen Shatner play D&D, so I mean, I've physically in person seen that, so it's like, okay. I mean, here's a 90-year-old man doing that. At that point, he was like 85, but still,
that's a very specific 85-year-old man.
Right. Right, but you know what I mean. It's interesting. It's weird. It's a strange. It's a strange anomaly. I mean, you have the Joe Montatega or whatever, however you say his name. He plays a lot, but
are you talking about the guy from True Blood?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, there are actors out there that curve that narrative that don't play along with that, but it's just interesting because a lot of the people I know who are into D&D are writers. They've written books or screenplays or something of that effect. So
yeah, because you do like not just beyond your character, you do have to have a kind of a sense of like the arc of the story too.
Sure.
Of your campaign, because if you just kind of keep meandering forever, I mean, you can do that, but like if you're doing sort of a campaign with a goal,
right,
you do want it to have like a satisfying beginning, middle, end as much as you can.
And I think also writers tend to like to know the scenery, like to know the genre, the era, all those things matter to a writer, whereas an actor can pretty much just pluck themselves into it and go, okay, I'm here, let's go.
Yeah. Again, depending on the actor, but yeah, yes, and there are definitely actors out there that are just show up, do the work, that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that though. That's kind of interesting. It's fascinating that. Do you think it makes you a better writer?
Or I mean, I like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely, like, I will for sure use, I'm not a plotter, as I think anyone who knows me knows, but one thing I'll do is I will occasionally use character sheets from D&D for my main characters to kind of get a sense of like, all of it, because those things are so great. They're basically like a writing journal. And you just write out like their beliefs, their origin, their appearance, and then you can kind of keep it all straight. So it definitely like it helps me be more organized in what ways I am organized. And I do think it helps me dive deeper into character like mentality, which as a pantser helps me kind of when I'm doing the stream of consciousness. I can really get into their voice that way.
Are you proud of the direction that Misadventure has kind of gone in, or do you feel like you're growing probably more than you ever thought you might have starting the series?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to remember what I thought about when I started the series. I knew like I had the 3 books planned. I knew the 4th one was going to kind of be this. It was sort of the end of 3 was a little bit of a surprise. So book 4 ended up being a surprise as well. But I knew that kind of how it was going to go. I think the ways I've grown that have shocked me is specifically accepting that I'm not just going to do 9 books because that's what I had in my head. Like that is huge. Because I think the younger version of me would have just committed. This is what I said I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it no matter what. And yeah, being a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more flexible with that particular trajectory. It's definitely a sign of growth for me.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I have known you for almost 2 years now, and I kind of see you growing. So yeah, it's an interesting idea when you see that in yourself too. It's kind of wow, you know.
It is one of those things where like I've grown enough to know when to give up. Which is an odd sort of thing to say, but
right. Or more aptly, probably move on and move forward.
Whichever, right? Yeah. That's
there's the old Sarah leaning in there a little bit with the 9 books. You're comparing doing 9 books versus 4 as giving up, when it's really you've actually figured out a way to make it better ending in 4 than 9.
True, that's true.
So, I mean, are you already thinking about? I mean, obviously, you just finished the first draft of 4, and you're about to probably go into some deep edits and kind of go around there and try to figure this out and try to get it out there. But it seems like the foundation's come out of you already, so you've already probably gotten everything you want to get out of Misadventure. So right now, when you're doing this 4th one, is it a new process for you because you have this Medusa thing, kind of boiling in the surface? Yeah. Is it hard? Do you feel like you have to stop a little bit? And is that the maturity of you as a writer? Maybe you have one thing you've done, you're going into the next thing, but the thing you've done is not done yet, so you have to still concentrate on that. You know what I mean? Is there that weird?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good that the new story is very much in its beginning, to the point where like I have characters, I don't have a full and I have like sort of a general idea of what I want to do, but I don't have a plot yet.
Yeah.
And that's good because I think it would make book 4 difficult. As it is, like, I think having both of them actually helps each of them. Because if I wasn't working on book 4, I'd be putting a lot of pressure on the new story to like figure it out. And it would probably become extremely it would be sort of almost the yips territory and writer's block. And I think I would struggle. And I don't have to do that. It's coming, like the details are revealing themselves. I'm slowly figuring it out while I'm still working on this other thing. And if I didn't have this new thing while I'm working on book 4 would be really sad. Like an ending without something else going on. So I think they actually help each other, having kind of both things living at the same time.
I love that. Have you made your peace with Misadventure yet, or are you comfortable saying goodbye, or is that still part of the struggle of letting it go a little bit too?
I think it's the same thing when I ended Dead Mall after 7 books. There were things I wanted to do with it still.
Mm-hmm.
And
still might, right?
And still might.
You can never say never.
Yeah, I mean, it's my choice. If
of course,
something, really explodes out of the blue, like nothing's off limits. But and so like I still have those. There are still stories I want to tell with these characters. But if I'm at the point where like if I don't get to tell them, it'll still be all right.
Mm-hmm. I think Medusa's an interesting departure for you too, because that character actually existed, existed in lore at least. So this is a unique experience too, where you're going to have to research some stuff. Are you prepared for that?
I'm lucky in the sense that I already did some research on Medusa for a Monster of the Week article, which is kind of where my fascination with her started when I first kind of started reading her story and seeing sort of how unfairly she was treated and how misunderstood she is. And so I have a little bit of a base. I still need to do a lot of research on just like Greek myth in general. Again, I have a base knowledge of it, but I'm by no means a scholar. So, and I mean, I don't think I'm going to be that much of a stickler in terms of like, because I'm not setting it in ancient Greece. It's going to be set in modern day.
Right.
So it's more about, just making sure I get the widely known things correct.
Right. The mythology of the magic or something of that effect, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. The Monster Week thing, I can imagine that helped a lot. But it's interesting to me because I think the one thing that I think I'm trying not to build too much of a spoiler to get people excited about this because this is down the road a little bit too much. But I think there's just room for a lot of misconception. Are you finding that already too? Are you ready to explore the differences in what people think about her versus what she really is?
Yeah, I mean that's part of the fun, right?
I love that. So, I mean, right now, when you're where you're at with Misadventure and the ending, is there? You said there's possible room to grow, but is there part of you, because I know you're an avid storyteller and you like certain ways that stories go? Is there a part of you that needs it to kind of feel like an end versus it being a true end?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I haven't written the end yet.
Oh, okay.
But I know what it's gonna be. I'm like this close. I'm like right at the final like confrontation.
Is it kind of an interesting teeter-totter to kind of do an end where it's really not the end, but it has to be the end of that end kind of idea?
Yeah, and I think again, I don't want to spoil anything for people.
Right. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to do that.
No, that's okay. I was lucky in the sense of how book 4 opens. That it almost can't not be satisfying in some way. As long as I do one very specific thing, and there's no way I'm not going to do that thing. So, and that's all I can say.
I know you were heavily involved in Wayne's journey through Johnny. Did that influence you at all? Has that given you some guidance into how to do this?
I think Wayne's journey is overall just really kind of inspiring because he bounces, like as an author, because he has no qualms about bouncing back and forth between two genres that really could not be more different. And he just does it, so well. I told him I was mad that he ended Johnny Lincoln after 3 books. I get it. I understand if you're not feeling it anymore, you shouldn't write it anymore. But I wanted more. So I hope he goes back to it at some point.
But he does set a foundation for this ending but not ending aspect of things, because I'm not, again, no spoilers here, but Johnny doesn't end the way you think endings would end for Johnny.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So is that kind of the foundation for Misadventure as well? Is that fair to say? Or is it a different way that it has to end for her?
I mean, I definitely want it to feel like, okay, without getting into any sort of spoilers here, what I'm aiming for the reader to feel at the end of this is that their questions of what has been presented are answered, and there's nothing, there's no doubt about the state of where the characters find themselves at the end of the story. And they could, close the book and be perfectly happy with what they know about where things are. Like, if they never see those characters again, that will be satisfying.
Fair enough.
That's what I'm hoping for.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. We'll walk away from that. We'll walk away from it for a round. I know the last time we talked, because I was so fascinated by your screenwriting and your playwriting. The last time we talked, I was purposely kind of staying away from that a little bit. But I think at this point in your career, in your life, do you feel like right now it might be a good way to kind of getting back into that stuff might be a good way of being a healthy distraction for you? Or do you look at it and go, you know what, I think I'm pretty good with how that part of my life went, and I don't really need that right now?
I mean, I will say that I miss it. I miss the collaboration part of it. And I think I said that last time too. This can get pretty lonely. However, where I am now with, having a very active 3-year-old that takes a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And also, since we spoke last, I had 2 of the groups that I'm a member of, the Sin City Writers Group and Coffee House Tours. Both of them kind of lost their figurehead. One moved away and one unfortunately passed. And I ended up kind of taking a little bit of control of them. With Coffee House Tours, I'm sharing it with 3 other people. And then in Sin City, I'm sort of interim in charge amongst the chairs. So since we last spoke, I get a lot more collaboration just from what I do normally now. So I haven't been missing playwriting and screenwriting and production as much as I have in the past, which is good.
Your own version of running for city council right there.
Well, yeah, I just kind of got pushed there a little bit.
I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, personally. But.
No, probably not. My mom has been trying to get me to run for office too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I'm like, no, Mom, no.
Well, if you do that, let me know. I helped some campaigns before, so I'd be more than honored to be a part of that. So, but yeah, no, that's cool. I love that. So that's really what you miss about it. You don't miss the conventional aspects of making something as much as you do making it with others. Yeah.
I would say that's true. I mean, it's a little unfair for me to have that opinion, I guess, because of how well. because I've had wonderful experiences with production and play production and screen production.
Yeah.
But the last experience I came off of was just so overwhelming, and there were aspects of it that were amazing,
I totally
and there
relate
were
to all
aspects
that.
of it that were not good.
Yeah, I totally relate to all that, and yeah, I gave so much so I gave up creating altogether for 2 years. I didn't create anything for 2 years with my experience like that. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
and also, like, I specifically remember, even despite all of the stress and everything that happened with that production, there was a moment during it where I remember thinking to myself, if I never get to do anything like this again, this is a dream come true. Despite everything bad that happened, I still believe that. So yeah, if I never get to do anything like that again, it's okay, because I did have that experience once.
Hi, Daniel. Nice that you made it.
Hello.
Welcome. Yeah. Is there a part of you that goes, that one ended so badly that I would like to have a makeup one though? Because that's where I'm at right now. I think a little bit too.
Yeah,
That,
I do. Yeah, I think about that sometimes. But then it's also like that production was back in Wisconsin, which was
Mhm,
2 whole cities ago, and I don't have any kind of network here.
mhm.
So it would be building up again from nothing. Um, and at the moment, that's more work than I want to do, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, that's more work, but I think that would be more satisfying even too, a little bit. Do you feel like that might be the case?
Probably when I'm ready, I think
Yeah.
it would be worth it.
Maybe when the kids go into school and you have free time and you're going, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I'm signed up for like the 48-hour film projects here in Vegas. Like I'm plugged in on a surface level. I just haven't really fully taken a dive into
Now,
meeting
would it be screen or play that you would do? Do you feel like there's one that you would prefer over the other?
I would probably play. Well,
Mhm.
I would like
Is
to
there a lot
still.
of like off strip stage play kind of stuff? I mean, I don't even think there's anything on the strip that's really playhouse ish either, really. But
Yeah, no, there's little houses.
mhm.
Las Vegas Little Theater is one of them. We've got a children's theater. My friend Paul, who is also part of Sin City Writers with me and Wayne, he's a theater critic. Like,
Mm.
he, makes a living doing that. So there's enough that you can, um, you know, go around and see multiple shows at multiple
Mhm.
places. It's not massive.
Yeah, talk about not getting paid. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Uh,
That's
but
when you
like,
really are doing it for the love of it.
yeah, absolutely. But like, my last reel in with a play acting community, playhouse community, was in Madison. So I'm used to a community of like 5 or 6 houses.
Mhm.
I'm not coming from a massive city. So that would be fine with me. I would actually be pretty comfortable getting into that community. But it does feel like getting a play staged is you really need to know somebody, or you need
Mhm.
to like know the ins.
Mhm.
Whereas like independent film, it feels like that would be a little bit easier because it's more mobile.
Sure.
To get like, I think it would be easier to do a sort of low budget, like not really sure how the quality would turn out, but I think you could get it produced more easily than a play.
There's not a lot of off strip stuff that gets filmed in Vegas either. I mean, otherwise in the desert, maybe with people use the desert for stuff. But like, I'm trying to think of films that went off the strip, and I mean, even like Made in America that's on the strip, and then it's in the Hoover Dam, and then you've got a little bit of Hoover Dam in a lot of those. Like every strip movie I can think of actually has a little bit of the Hoover Dam in it, but otherwise, I don't think many. There's not that many that are off the strip.
I don't know about filming in
Uh,
Vegas, because filming has historically been really weird.
Yeah, because
and
the Nevada Film Commission stinks. But
yeah, they're trying to change it now with, you know, the interest from houses, like big houses trying to come in. So we'll see if, you know, that makes things any easier. The movie I always think about that, again, I don't know if it was shot here, but it's set in Vegas and off the strip, is Pay It Forward.
Yeah.
I always think of that one.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that one. That's one of those underappreciated films too. Haley Joel Osment and Kevin Spacey, right?
Yeah, that one, like, I think it was underappreciated because Haley Joel Osment was coming off of Sixth Sense.
Right.
That was so massive for his career that like Pay It Forward was just kind of like, nobody cares.
Well, I think it was one of those people looked at that and went, you know, the actors involved in it were all actors that were hot, and they did a movie because of their name was on the movie. Kind of looking at it, people didn't give the movie a chance, I think.
It's a really good movie. It's really sad.
It is, yeah, I agree. There's that degree of it too. That's interesting though. Yeah, I think. Plus, I think also with independent film versus stage, you're giving up maybe 4 or 5 months of your life if you're lucky, maybe 6 or 7, typically maybe even a year. Yeah. Whereas, you know, with an independent film, you might be giving up 3 months.
True. Right? Yeah, it goes pretty quick. I mean, then you have post-production, but depending on your role, that doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably do that from where you're sitting right now too. So
probably, yeah.
So I mean, there's that too. So, but
and then you know it'll come out on time because it's me.
Yeah.
That was one thing about the production from before is we ran a Kickstarter to fund it, and I was in charge of a lot of stuff. And one of the things was fulfillment. And I was like, there is no, like, I set the estimated date and I was like, I am not going to be late.
Yeah.
Which is another way I've matured is that, you know, I'll just explain like, oh, it's going to take a little bit longer and everyone will be fine with it. Stop putting so much pressure on myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I was actually going to just bring that up, how much that you've evolved in that aspect of it too. You know, deadlines are kind of softer for you a little bit.
Yeah. It's weird. I'm doing like adolescence in reverse. Like when I was younger, I would not let myself slack off. And now that I've hit 40, it's like, everyone will live.
I am, you know, fascinated by what you've learned, you know, going out there and putting yourself out there over the last year too. Has that been an eye-opening process for you too? Have you kind of, I mean, obviously it sounds like, you know, obviously it changed an entire series for you a little bit in terms of marketing wise, but, and writing wise even, but I am curious if there's something about that aspect of it that has changed for you as well.
In terms of like,
just, I mean, do you feel like there's a growth that you've experienced, or maybe even an eye-opening thing that you've experienced while being a part of, you know, being part of in-person events or online events that you go, you know, I might have thought about this wrong at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, one, I'll say that my involvement with Coffee House Tours has been like essential to me because, you know, we go around to little coffee houses, you know, they're not big events. You're with one other person. Nobody is really planning on buying a book. They may come by, you know, you might talk to 5 or 6 people over the course of 3 hours. You might sell a couple books. But it's such good practice to like get used to pitching in person and more specifically get used to like people will, you know, listen to your pitch or pick up your book and then put it down and be like, okay, thank you, and walk away, and learn how to not let that just completely crush you. Like, it's hard for me to remember a time where I could think about that happening and not like, you know, do that. Now it's just sort of like that. Yeah, that happens. That's going to happen. And it means nothing, you know.
Are you more impressed or less impressed with the Vegas audience than you were when you started this?
I'm more impressed, to be honest with you. Like, one of my favorite events, probably my favorite event to do every year, is the Las Vegas Book Festival in October, because it's my big month, being October. And it has just gotten bigger and more, like, people are more enthusiastic about it every single year. You know, I get all kinds of readers. I meet all kinds of writers, like, and then, you know, an event, I just did the Authors and Artists Fair at the Clark County Library in January. Year before, in 2024, I sold maybe like one book and had almost no interest. This year, I was busy my entire shift. Like, I am amazed at how much it seems the community is growing and rallying around its literary outlets here.
Yeah, the book festival we've talked about before. I had an opportunity to do that, and I just thought it was like a meat market. But yeah, it sounds like it's getting its legs, so that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and October's a good time to do that too, because that's a lot of conventions and stuff like that, right? So you're getting like the inner crowds from there too. So
yes, for sure.
All right, well, Sarah, as always, thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful to chat for an hour with you, and tell everybody where they can find what you're doing, and keep track of where you are so that they can get these books when they come out.
Yeah, the best place you can find me is going to be my website, which is SG Tasz, my name, .com. I am on Instagram and Facebook mostly. I'm not really on TikTok anymore. But like, as things kind of move and change in terms of social media and selling outlets, my website is where you can always find me.
Are you aiming at being more direct with your sales?
Yeah, I'm actually, I am in the process of taking Dead Mall out of Kindle Unlimited, and I'm going to be starting to sell direct probably next month. And we'll kind of, you know, once again, Dead Mall is going to be the experiment child. And I'm going to, you know, kind of test the process on that, see how it goes, and then maybe move on.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to let us know how that goes, because we're always fascinated by that. We have a new show coming this week, actually, starting this week, called Page Numbers with Bob Magoo, where he's going to go over numbers and how people have experienced things. So that might be something he might be interested in. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Come back to Going In Now in a couple hours, because we have a conversation and cocktail with Vanessa Junta. Her guest will be Thames and Silver. It's going to be an awesome conversation. You will not want to miss that. And remember, that's always time to go in now. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.